begins his quest in Fumania in northern Spain, at one of the most spectacular dinosaur stomping grounds on the globe. This cliff face is pockmarked with over 3,000 dinosaur footprints.
Every time I come to this locality, I can't fail to be gobsmacked at how gorgeous it is.
Paleontologists have catalogued and studied this place for years, but no one has ever attempted what Phil's about to try. He wants to figure out how these dinosaurs moved. He knows that these dinosaurs did not scale these cliffs. The neighborhood has changed a lot in 70 million years. Near the end of the age of dinosaurs, when Fumania was steamy, swampy, and horizontal, hulking 60-ton titanosaurs called it home. They pressed their flat-footed imprints deep into the mud. Tides and storms washed layers of mud into the fresh tracks, protecting them from the elements. Over millions of years, more mud and sand covered the footprints and compressed them into solid rock. Then the Earth moved. Over millions of years, the African tectonic plate collided with Europe, giving birth to this mountain range, the Pyrenees. And the ancient mud plain went high-rise, taking the titanosaur trackways with it. Now Phil and his team will use forensic technology to turn these stone-cold tracks into fluid dinosaur motion. This team of Spanish paleontologists, including Dr. Bernard Villa, have painstakingly mapped these footprints for over a decade, hand measuring one print at a time.
It's okay.
They've invited Phil to hang out with them.
Why does it always feel a little bit nervous when I'm going to be lowered off the edge of a perfectly good cliff?
The track survived for 70 million years, and now Phil has come just in time to see them vanish.
Yeah, that works. But it's not the easiest way of mapping a locality. This is a nightmare. And it cuts your bollocks like no tomorrow.
The weather that exposed the tracks in the first place now grinds them down.
I can see there's the first track there.
Even studying the fragile footprints adds to their destruction.
And is this the way you've been recording them till now?
Yeah.
You're mad. Absolutely bonkers. I can see the tracks. It's really hard to measure the length and the width because it's a three-dimensional form. How do you know what you're measuring is the right width or length?
It's really difficult because I don't know where is the old line. So
you broke the track.
Sorry,
you just damaged. It's changed now. It's longer.
Yeah.
It shows the point. A, when you're dangling up here in the middle of nowhere, that just by touching the tracks and measuring them by hand, they are so friable. They just break away.
Yeah, sadly, that's true. Yeah.
Phil predicts that in a decade, these trackways will be history, but not in a good way. They're fading already.
It's a pain in the neck. I need a 3D map of this trackway to work out exactly what these titanosaurs were doing and how they were walking. And the only way to do that is by using LiDAR.
Phil's flown in Frank Rarity, a geologist and long-range LiDAR specialist.
Power up.
We'll start with an overview scan of the entire outcrop, and then we'll break it down into individual trackways that we'll look at in much higher resolution.
It does look a bit like a James Bond nuclear weapon, but it does a remarkable job. There's nothing else that can do it. It's just fantastic that we're recovering so much information at this locality, because the potential of using this technology here has not really been realised before, so I think it's really exciting.
LiDAR can rapidly sweep the entire cliff face without touching a single grain of it. The system maps every nuance, capturing the length, width and depth of each footprint on every trackway. With this technology, Phil will end up with an exact digital replica of Fumania.
Exactly the same in adult.
But his Spanish colleagues have saved their best discovery for last.
Juvenile to adult.
Off the beaten trail, the most surprising tracks of all.
It's a baby dinosaur. This is about as rare as rocking horse poo. This is something I'll probably never see again.
This is the only baby trackway here in Fumania.
That's beautiful.
We know even less about baby dinos than we do about their parents. Comparing their gaits can tell Phil something about how these titanosaurs grow.
Just by looking at the tracks, you can sort of work out the size of this animal. I know, like, we can see the foreprints and the hind limbs. So literally take 2 foreprints, 2 hind limbs, divide between the 2 of each, and it gives you the shoulder and the hip. That's the size of a dog.
Yeah, a small dog like this. And comparing with adult titanosaurs, it's like...
I could be holding a dinosaur like this.
This more accessible set of baby tracks allows Phil to use ultra-sensitive short-range LiDAR.
This is high resolution. This is phenomenal resolution. Our last one, we can get to about 1 centimetre. Each little block that we build together to look at our landscape is about 1 centimetre across. This one is 0.1 of a millimetre. That's astoundingly powerful.
So where standard LiDAR can focus on a single sugar cube, short-range LiDAR can pick out individual grains. The 3D scan of these tracks will tell Phil and the team how the titanosaur's limbs remained proportionally the same as they grew to an adult 100 times larger. The answer won't come at once. Even a supercomputer needs help. It takes weeks for the team to find hidden flaws in the scans before the computer can collate the millions of LiDAR data points. Then, at last, Phil and his research partner, Bill Sellers, get the results.
It's a really stunning image too. I mean, it just looks like a photograph that's been wrapped around the topography.
In this virtual Fumania, Phil and Bill can explore the trackway from any angle and see much more detail than with the naked eye. It's almost as good as being there.
You can see the hind legs where the feet have been pushing down, but the forelimb, the hands of the animal, as it were, even though it's a quadruped, it's still hands. You can see the little impressions, so it really does have the complete trackway. Clearly, LiDAR is a very powerful tool.
Best of all, this digital record can be copied, transmitted, preserved, and studied long after Fumania crumbles. These tracks can reveal their secrets over generations to come, and starting right now.
That's good.
Bill has scaled down the footprints of the adult titanosaur to match the baby's tracks.
That was bloody fast. Wow, it does. It really does match.
That's a good fit, isn't it?
Truth. Well, that clearly shows then that the baby animal really was moving very, very similarly to the adult.
But these tracks, because they're basically just shrunk versions of the adult, it means that the body size was just scaling up very uniformly.
So it's literally a mini-me titanosaur.
That's right, yeah, it just got bigger.
As many modern animals grow, their proportions and strides can sometimes change. But not the baby titanosaur. This tyke was no toddler. On the surface, the trackway shows an ordinary day in the life of these dinosaurs.
This one wasn't doing a jig. He's very sedate, gently walking along. These were not exactly the sprinters of the Cretaceous. You can imagine this tidal flat all those millions of years ago with these creatures, these animals sort of sauntering across, both the adults and with a little sauropod trying to keep up with mum and dad.
But on closer study, Phil's noticed precisely the kind of new information he'd been hoping for.
We've plucked something out of one of the trackways that is really quite interesting.
Okay, go on, show me.
I can't show you here. I think the key thing is I need you to have an analytical view of my rear end to really understand what we have discovered on these tracks. Come and have a look.
Okay.
I think this is the only way you can do it is by doing physical experiments combined with what we're seeing with the LiDAR. You want to play on a sandpit.
Oh, come on.
The LiDAR map revealed that titanosaurs gently swayed their hind legs when they walked. And that gives Phil a clue about how these dinosaurs got around.
The trackways in Fumania have this wiggle in the hind portion. Now, it's only from round about just the vertebrae, the back just around the hips. So it's literally in its lower back, which it was wiggling its hula. Just a minute. It's very good, isn't it? No, does it? No, don't go there. So when these animals are walking, they're literally, if it was just a straight line, absolutely no wiggle at all in the hip. So you'd expect to look back and see it's a very straight line.
Very straight.
But if I was to do the hip wiggle, it's subtly different. Got to wiggle those hips. So it was literally swinging its hips out like this. It makes me look like I've actually had an accident in my trousers, which is not good. Why the hip wiggle though?
Well, I think the most likely reason is it's trying to lengthen its stride, because we know from experiments that it's actually cheaper to walk or run with actually long strides. You use less energy, so you can go further for your meal, and that's important.
The titanosaur conserved energy by taking longer strides with its hind limbs. To do that, it gently bent its lower spine, rocking its hips from side to side. It was very fluid, very efficient, and for Phil, a very significant discovery, because no other dinosaur is known to move like that. Without the forensic power of LiDAR, Phil would never have seen it. While LiDAR made Phil's work in Fumania possible, paleontologists took the first crucial steps in locomotion science well before the technology existed. So Phil travels from one sandpit to another in a cold safari park in Manchester, England, to meet with biomechanics pioneer Professor McNeill Alexander.
We have the luxury of being able to see the animal that's left the footprints today. Now, in the fossil record, I'm left with a real problem of often just having tracks. But there's so much we can learn from tracks.
We can indeed, and we can estimate speeds from them. And obviously, we could see with these animals what speed they were going. But when it's a dinosaur, you have to depend on the tracks.
Now,
you can't use a stopwatch on a dinosaur.
That's very true.
McNeill noted that every creature on Earth, whether two-legged or four-legged, lengthens its stride when it runs. In 1976, he crunched that observation into a formula for measuring speed. He then applied it to dinosaurs. Given the distance between fossil footprints and an estimation of hip height, McNeill can calculate a dinosaur's speed.
Okay, so we've got a stride length of about 2 meters here.
Now, what height would you reckon the hip joint of that animal was? How long was its hind leg?
How many times I've asked that of a dinosaur and been frustrated, but now we can just look over our shoulder and, yes, on cue.
Yes.
Using McNeill's theory, Phil has worked out that this adolescent elephant, with a hip height of 1.8 meters and a stride length of 2 meters, would have left these footprints while traveling at 5 kilometers an hour.
So really, footprints, not only can they put the animal at the scene of the crime, they are a powerful tool for paleontology.
Yes, but one of the big problems is that we never really know when we're wrong.
That's never stopped paleontologists before.
And it won't stop Phil and Bill, who jet off to Argentina to apply McNeil's speed theory to a track site Phil has waited a decade to return to. More than 100 million years ago, upright super-predatory dinosaurs terrorized these lands. Today, animal tracker Martin Monteverde has come to help Phil study their trails.
Bollocks. I sort of remember this site. It hasn't changed at all, bar the water. I was hoping to show you some of the most incredible dinosaur tracks in the whole of South America, if not the world. These are very special.
They're among the largest bipedal dinosaur tracks ever found. 10 years ago, Phil didn't have the technology to study them properly. And now it's too late.
I just cannot believe there is some chinless wonder sat in an office somewhere that doesn't understand that by raising a lake, you destroy something which is absolutely irreplaceable.
It's a major setback for Phil's mission.
It's a complete pain in the arse.
But luckily, Phil knows of another set of 100-million-year-old footprints just around the corner. And tragically, they're also under a man-made lake.
What is it with water and dinosaur footprints around this place? I think it's time, gentlemen, for wading with dinosaurs.
Of course.
Phil can still apply McNeil's formula to calculate the dinosaur's speed based on its stride length, even underwater.
Of course. So what sort of dinosaur do you think this might be?
They're aquatic dinosaurs, clearly.
Swimming along.
These dinosaurs, if you look at the length of the track, if they're longer than they're wide, then usually indicates they're a predatory dinosaur. If they're fat and dumpy, they're going to be a plant eater. These are of a predator.
Phil can estimate the size of the one that walked here.
We can probably calculate hip height, so it's the animal's bum was about here. It's a big animal, probably about 30 feet long.
By measuring the length of the track, the length of the stride,
Yeah, it's about 181.
and Phil's estimation of the hip height,
It's got an over 2 meter hip height.
McNeil's formula helps him figure out the dinosaur's speed. Both Phil and the dinosaur wade through water, albeit 100 million years apart. The predator, on unsure ground, took short strides.
You can see the dinosaur sort of 100 million years ago.
The ferocious predator doesn't seem so scary after all. Like McNeil, Bill Sellers bases his theories on living animals. However, Bill's not concerned with footprints, but bones and rhinos.
I always worry when we're working with animals, you know, and children. It never works.
Over the past 10 years, Bill has been shooting animals with a high-speed camera. At 500 frames per second, the camera captures every nuance of the animal's gait as it runs. The more Bill learns about living animal locomotion, the better he can predict how dinosaurs moved. He's focused on big animals because they're easier to track and they bear a superficial similarity to big dinosaurs.
But hopefully they'll come on the road.
Hang on, they're coming around onto the road now. Let's swing around. That's fantastic.
Animals move in the way that's most efficient for their anatomy. Rhinos make good subjects because their gait can change so drastically.
If you're trying to judge high performance, then you need to look at galloping. Because big quadrupeds go fastest when they gallop. And the largest living galloping quadruped is the rhino. Problem is, they rarely ever do this.
If Bill can catch a galloping rhino on film, he can apply his findings to his work on dinosaurs.
Oh, that's better. That's better. That's much closer.
Beautiful.
Oh, yes, that's the one. Look at that.
Got the feeling you're being watched.
Yes, absolutely. Can you see the detail on this?
You as well.
You pecked me earlier on.
At Manchester University, Phil and Bill download what they've bagged at the safari park.
If you look at this little one at the front here, you see what he's doing? You see these 3 legs up in the air at the moment?
He's galloping.
He's galloping. We actually got a galloping rhinoceros. So we knew that these animals are the largest animals that can gallop, but they so rarely do so in captivity, and we weren't expecting to get that. Isn't that brilliant?
It's stunning. It's like a Batman comment, isn't it? Galloping rhinoceroses. No, it is fantastic to see. And in slow motion, it looks so elegant.
Bill will take this elegant motion and distill it to its simplest form. Then he'll add it to the library of a software program called GateSim, which he designed to understand how animals moved. He creates a virtual rhino skeleton, telling the computer where to attach the muscles that power the beast. Then he lets the software mull it over. Locomotion is extremely complicated, and GateSim needs a supercomputer to figure it out. One day, and 86 million billion calculations later, GateSim makes its prediction of how the rhino moves. And it's pretty close to reality. Now that GateSim has proven itself on live animals, Bill will use it to make a dinosaur walk after 65 million years.
Maybe a tuning thing. As long as it works well for living animals, we are pretty sure it's working well for fossil animals.
So really, this technology is a virtual key to a locomotor past. We can really unlock things we had no way of guessing otherwise.
But many dinosaurs walked on 2 legs, and Bill conducted his test on modern 4-legged animals. So to really test GateSim, he needs a bipedal guinea pig.
What do you mean, run fast, you cheeky git? I'll show you. Run like a bloody dinosaur, I will.
Brilliant, got you.
That's it. You nearly got my lunch.
There you are.
Excellent. Looks like I'm being chased by a dinosaur, let alone impersonating one.
I think if you were being chased by a dinosaur, you'd be going a little bit quicker.
Yeah, it's probably true, actually.
Bill constructs a 3D Phil skeleton
Also, it's got the tendons, hasn't it, which will stiffen it.
and meticulously attaches virtual muscles to his lower half to accurately mirror Phil's anatomy. GateSim decides he'd run like this. A comparison with the slow-motion footage convinces Bill that GateSim works just as well with bipedal locomotion as it did with a 4-legged galloping rhino. And now the real test. Bill plugs in the skeleton of a bipedal hadrosaur and gives it virtual muscles. GateSim goes to work, providing a scientifically accurate look at how this dinosaur moved.
LiDAR can help us understand how dinosaurs moved by its footprints, and now GateSim can tell me how a skeleton moves, but I'm going to need every trick in the book to solve this next mystery.
A stormy evening at Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania. perfect time for an alien autopsy.
This is really pretty. I can't believe you can pick.
Phil probes the fossil remains of a 200-million-year-old enigma called a Poposaurus. It's the obsession of paleontologist Emma Schuckner, who is determined to reanimate this creature and see it walk again.
You really do have a fabulous beastie here. I can't get over how odd it is. It's Freakosaurus. It shouldn't be called Poposaurus.
Freakosaurus.
Poposaurus is not a dinosaur, but a basal archosaur, a member of the ancient group that also includes crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds. 200 million years ago, while dinosaurs evolved, basal archosaurs ruled the world. It's believed the Poposaur, the only one of its kind yet discovered, has a skeletal structure unlike anything that came after it.
The weird thing about this animal is how the thigh bone went into the hip socket. So in dinosaurs, the thigh bone kind of goes in at an angle, but this animal, it went into the hip socket directly from below, like this. So it changes completely how the animal moved. It makes everything different.
It's like someone shoved a crocodile up a kangaroo's ass. It just does not make sense.
Poposaur had tiny arms with 5 delicate fingers, large hip sockets and thigh bones, and especially large ankle bones, prompting Phil to question, did it walk on 4 legs like a crocodile? 2 legs like some dinosaurs? Or could it have even hopped like some demonic bunny? The Poposaur isn't talking, but that's what Phil and Emma aim to find out.
I think if you're going to really work out something about the locomotion of this animal, the only way you're going to do it is by literally squeezing the whole animal into a supercomputer and saying, how do you work? Come on, just look at it. Do a very unscientific thing. What do you reckon it's going to come out like?
With a heel bone like this, elongated feet like that, I would love to say it hopped. I'm hoping the computer spits out something like that. We're going to have to test it.
To settle the matter, Phil and Emma create a digital record of the skeleton. What looks like a supermarket barcode reader is actually a state-of-the-art laser scanner. Basically, a handheld LiDAR.
So whenever I point this laser now at this object, you see on the screen, see the red laser? That line represents exactly what we're scanning onto the bone.
The laser creates a 3D virtual Poposaur. But that doesn't stop Emma from taking a more classic approach to her research. While Emma's sketches have the weight of tradition behind them, they can't match the laser's speed or 360-degree view.
How long would it take you to draw that bone?
At least 12 to 15 hours.
And how long has this taken?
30 seconds, maybe, at the most.
I rest my case.
The digital Poposaur is readable by the GateSim software. But they'll have to dress it up with some virtual muscles back in Manchester. Scars on the bones indicate where the major muscles attached, but don't indicate their size. So Phil and Emma prepare to dissect 2 modern animals related to the Poposaur, a gator and an emu. With its long tail and powerful legs, the Poposaur superficially resembles both. But how do the parts all fit together on the inside?
But that's where it gets a bit messy, because that's where you need to start chopping things up.
Right, but that's the fun part.
Chopping up dead bodies is fun.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
You're scaring me. I'm just grateful I've got the easy one to handle. Having problems there? Hang on. Ah, that's gross. You need to hit me in the face with a dead emu. I have to say, Emma, your thighs are much nicer than mine. Okay, let's peel back and see what we can see in terms of leg muscles on the emu. Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh my God, they're huge.
Stinky but satisfying. Why do I always get the arse end?
Look at these calf muscles. Look at this.
Well, it's clearly one that's very important for the locomotion of this animal. It's fantastic. You can see the tendons there, how useful they are flexing and extending the foot. So useful for being a fast runner.
Scars on the poposaur's leg bones suggest to Phil that its muscles and tendons resembled the emu's and attached in a similar way. But it doesn't explain the giant ankle bones, which are completely different to the emu. Phil still can't rule out that these joints helped the poposaur to hop. But the tail, broad and muscular like a gator's, no doubt also played a big role in the poposaur's locomotion.
We need now to look at an animal that has an engine in its arse. And for that you need a long tail. I think let's flip this beastie over, then we can have a better look at these muscles. So, do you want to turn that way?
Let's swing him around.
Sorry, Mr. Gator. There we go.
Hold back these tail muscles.
Wow, that's fantastic. Look at the size of that muscle. You don't expect to find a chicken breast in an alligator's arse.
Especially after cutting up the emu. I mean, this muscle it's huge. I mean, this primarily pulls back the thigh.
Well, it's quite clear that having a muscle this big, it's involved in locomotion, but you've got two things going on here. Clearly, the leg is one, but this great big thick tail, a wonderful bit of locomotory sort of energy can be delivered by this muscle. Well, whatever it's for, that long tail in the poposaur, it certainly might link it to having a big muscle group like this that we're seeing in the gator.
The dissection suggests that the poposaur bears more than a superficial resemblance to an emu and a gator. But how it all comes together, with the unusual hips and ankles, is something for Bill Sellers and GateSim to decide.
Oh, that's the big arse muscle, the cauda femoralis longus. That's huge.
Bill attaches the red virtual muscles to the poposaur's lower half, but leaves the next step to GateSim. The software will make hundreds of millions of calculations and figure out how the virtual muscles fire to get the poposaur to move.
Okay, I think it's time to press the go button.
Okay. The supercomputer will need almost 2 weeks to calculate the motion of the muscles and the skeleton. In the meantime, Phil and Bill make tracks to the pub for some unconventional fieldwork. Armed with Emma's sketch and an artist's rendering, Phil thinks he can rule out any possibility that the poposaur walked on 4 legs.
But the forearm is just so small. It's clearly a bipedal animal.
No, it's much too short. Even on that, you couldn't use those for running. Well, I reckon we can test this.
Swapping a bank of computers for a table of students and a few pints, Bill broadens his research.
We want to work out how it moved. And what we're really looking for is a volunteer to try out a few experiments about...
What are the movements of that animal?
It's quite crouched down. It has a long tail to sort of balance out the fact that its weight is leaning quite forward. So the extensive length of its tail will help counterbalance the fact that it's constantly leaning forward. It seems to walk on its toes, again, by the way that it's structured. It's very, so if I was to sort of simulate its stance, it would be very sort of kind of stood like this on its tiptoes, knees bent and everything. It's quite difficult because I don't have a tail. But, you know, it's very flat across its back with a long tail to keep it sort of upright. That's how I view it. I'm a psychologist, but...
As always, the poposaur's abnormally large feet give everyone pause.
Is it possible this thing might have walked on its heels, just like we do?
Well, it has a very large projection from the calcaneus bone, which is just like what humans have, and we walk with a heel strike, so heel down first.
Go on, show us what you mean.
Can you demonstrate that?
I'm going to see if this dinosaur would have done heel strike. So the trouble is, I have
It's got really big feet.
This dinosaur has huge feet, so I would imagine it would be like me crouching down but walking with clown shoes on. So, would I be able to do that? Can I borrow your boots, Dave?
None of the students hit upon Phil's pet theory of poposaur locomotion.
But there is an alternative hypothesis where this thing can actually hop, a bit like a reptilian kangaroo. And the idea, if we take it going up onto its toes, digitigrade, just like the ballet dancer, and sort of having this semi-erect, sort of upright body forward. Of course, I haven't got a long balancing tail, but when this thing would have shifted, I reckon it really could have been capable of jumping like, oops, sorry. We choose the most logical way of moving, the most efficient way of moving.
It's not going to hop very often if it can run twice the speed it can hop.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we really need to try and find out. It's what it's best at.
I think they've earned another beer.
I think I have. You're going to get your wallet open.
Very rare occasion, yes.
As the pub theories get more outrageous, Gate Sim keeps plugging away and is ready to tell Bill and Phil if the Poposaurus could hop.
He's like a punk rocker pogo dancer at a concert. It was a punkosaurus, let alone Poposaurus or Poposaurus.
According to Gate Sim, the Poposaurus can hop. But then again, so can we. The question is whether hopping was the most efficient way for Poposaur to get around.
I mean, it can do it, but it's not high speed.
So hopping is possible, but not likely to be its usual gait.
But can the Poposaurus run?
That's fantastic.
And that's a bit more like it.
It is. That looks stable.
Yeah, and look, in a second, it's already at 4 meters.
So that's quite respectable.
And actually, it's going a bit better than that now. So what's it going to do? 2 seconds and it's done 9 meters. 4.5 meters per second. That's much more reasonable.
That's pretty good.
After weeks of crunching data, Gate Sim has demonstrated that the Poposaur walked and ran on 2 legs, like an emu. It probably held its spine horizontally to maximize the power of its gator-like tail. Weighing about the same as a basset hound, but with powerful legs for sprinting, Poposaurus could hold its own in the vicious, mysterious world at the dawn of the age of dinosaurs.
So from the reconstruction that we have, all of the scan data, all of the muscle groups been added on, Poposaurus, quite a capable runner.
Yes.
Also, it was capable of hopping, but more likely it's going to be a runner.
I think so.
I think it's wonderful. We're the first people on the planet ever to see a Poposaurus hop, skip and jump, or in this case, run across the screen. I think that's pretty neat.
With LiDAR, Phil reanimated a Poposaur in Pennsylvania and showed a sauropod swagger in Spain. But his work's not done. He heads to China to study one of the most important trackways in the country and to see how trackways can sometimes be misleading. Phil, who's never set foot in Gansu province before, takes along his colleague Peter Dodson, a seasoned traveller in China.
Oh, isn't this gorgeous? Stunning. Oh, morning, Daching. Ah!
Li Da-Ching, one of the world's foremost paleontologists, joins them.
Oh, ni hao, ni hao.
In the bone beds of China, he's making some of the most important dinosaur discoveries to date.
My first ever trip on the Yellow River. I'm really excited about this.
The trackway lies just 20 kilometers down the Yellow River. But for Phil, it's a journey through eons of geological time.
It's amazing. 450 million years ago, this place was teeming with life, albeit at the bottom of an ocean.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's great. That's great. for that target. How low? Oh, no. Oh my God. We've lost Peter.
As the boat approaches its destination, Li Da-Ching presents his map of the trackway. The site, about the size of an Olympic swimming pool, has a staggering 1,392 dinosaur tracks.
That is absolutely stunning. Look at all these.
To conserve the tracks, Da-Ching had much of the site reburied.
Is that a theropod?
Theropod, yes.
Yeah, look at that. That's sauropod.
As exciting as the map may be, Phil and Peter didn't come all this way to look at a sheet of paper.
Look there.
It looks like a spaceship has landed. Yeah. That is a shoulder, yes.
So many brilliant discoveries have happened here. They've literally stuck the museum slap bang on top of them.
What on earth was going on here 100 million years ago? These dinosaurs are having a dance.
Both four- and two-legged dinosaurs walked this terrain, but it's the quadrupedal beasts that interest me the most, because these footprints are unlike any I've seen before.
Look at the size of this! Hey, look, walking with dinosaurs. Astounding. Oh, look at these. And they change as you go across the surface.
Some of the footprints are much deeper than others.
This one ate all the pies. Squelch.
Phil suspects it means a change in the terrain.
I don't want to come down, I want to stay. Why do I have to look at a piece of paper when I could be looking at the real thing? Sorry. I know the paper is important.
Da-Ching spent 4 weeks painstakingly hand-mapping this complicated track site. But with LiDAR, Phil can create a more detailed 3D record in less than 2 hours. A track site captures a moment in time. A snapshot of how a dinosaur moved in 1 instant. This remarkable site shows dinosaur movement over changing terrain, giving Phil a more accurate idea of how dinosaurs moved under different ground conditions. Phil will have a permanent record of dinosaur and terrain. But seeing the site with his own eyes lets him speculate about the creature's behavior.
This animal was walking with a sauropod with flat feet at the beginning of its trackway, because halfway down the trackway it changes its gait, and as a result it's not only just putting flat foot, it's toeing off and pushing with the toes again. And you can see that in the trackways in 3D. You can't see it in a two-dimensional map.
Back in Manchester, Phil tries to replicate the sauropod's epic stroll for Bill Sellers.
Probably wondering why I've dragged you into a field in rural England.
I was rather, yes.
Freezing cold. Well, I reckon those tracks we were looking at in China, which you've not seen yet, really we can help interpret them just by looking at this muddy field, because when that animal was walking and crossing terrain like this, look at that, you have to change the way you move your limbs. But for us to really understand what's happening, I think we need to dig a big hole and work out how we can walk across a similar substrate, and whether we would change the way we would walk. And I think, dig that hole!
To truly make sense of a dinosaur's tracks, Phil needs to understand the environment in which they were left. And that means mud.
This it's quite easy to imagine a big dinosaur, such as a sauropod, walking on firm substrate like this without any problem.
Yeah.
You can cope with this easily. We can. We can walk normally, run, hop, whatever. But once you're into this stuff, you just want to be a little bit careful. Look at that, how it squelches up around. That's beautiful. That is just like some of the tracks. Well, not like that. Like this. Just like the ones we're seeing in China.
Right.
But it was clearly the animal was walking very carefully and gingerly almost within the really squelchy mud.
Do you get this kind of rim round the edges of the track? Like
Yeah.
you do here?
I wonder if it got its feet stuck as well. Anyway.
Do you get things like shorter stride difference? Oh, God.
Well,
God.
I wonder if the sauropods had this problem.
I bet they did.
But you've got to change. You can't move normally, can
No,
you?
you certainly
can't. There you
can't.
go. Have I proved my point? I'm stuck, mate. I'm stuck. I'm stuck.
Phil believes the deep footprints at the start of the trackway show the sauropods sinking deeply into the mud. Hardly agile in even the best conditions, the 30-ton dinosaur certainly struggled.
But once it got to more competent substrate, it could start walking properly again, which he says hopefully. Yeah, that's better. Now it's easier. Yeah, I can walk now. And now look, my tracks are very shallow here, but over there, they're a right mess. That's exactly what we were seeing.
Just like Phil, the sauropod eventually made it out of the muddy bog, and its footprints grew much shallower as it reached solid ground. If Phil only had a 2D map to work from, he would never have been able to reconstruct the sauropod's dilemma.
So just maybe we can use dinosaurs as a way of sort of testing what the ground was like when they were staggering around 80 or 100 million years ago. I think that's pretty neat.
LiDAR, the technology that can stop criminals in their tracks, can also put dinosaurs back on their feet. Through LiDAR, Phil and his team have come closer to bringing dinosaurs to life. By turning static bones and eroding trackways into glimpses of these creatures in motion. Not only can LiDAR peel back the layers of time to shine a light on animals 70 or even 200 million years old, but it can capture a fragile, ancient landscape digitally and permanently, safeguarding it for paleontology's next generation.
I think it's incredible how 21st century technology like the LiDAR is changing the way we view dinosaurs completely. And I do think locked in the sands of time are all these wonderful three-dimensional structures waiting for the bright light of LiDAR.